Hello and welcome to the Bookshelf Odyssey. My name is Art and we're exploring my bookshelves. And today I'm participating in Tiffany from the Beach Bum Bookworm YouTube channel. She's doing a Christmas Advent calendar kind of thing where we're all participating with videos. I also host the Cozy Christmas podcast as well as YouTube channel where I have some book recommendations and things over there as well, but they're mostly Christmas related. So you can go ahead and check that out if you'd like. So what I'm going to do today is an original book tag that I created for my Christmas podcast. We had some reading challenges to read throughout the year together, and I came up with 12 prompts based on Christmas movies. And then we were to pick, a book to read for that prompt, or in this case, a favorite book, if you've read a favorite book. So you could use this as a reading prompt or a tag. I think either way would work, but I'm going to structure this as a tag for today's purposes. I love Christmas a lot. I mean, obviously I do a Christmas podcast as well as a book podcast. So I'm in the Christmas game for a good portion of the year. And it's so fun just to be able to talk about Christmas anytime I want to. For this tag, there are 12 questions, and I'm really excited to have created a book tag and would love to see you participate in it. I will tag a couple of people, but since this is a new tag, if you want to do it, consider yourself tagged for sure. And all right, so here we are, the very first official Cozy Christmas book tag, and there are 12 prompts based on 11 of my favorite Christmas movies and one that I really don't care for at all. So we'll get to that. And they're not in order of my favorites, just they're in an order that made sense to me at the time. So prompt number 1, The Santa Claus. Do you have a favorite book that concerns family? So the movie The Santa Claus, starring Tim Allen, is one of my favorite Christmas movies. And it is definitely about family. And so thinking about books about family, one that I particularly enjoyed, Dombey and Son by Charles Dickens. That's definitely, family is a very strong element in that plot. And it tells the story of Mr. Dombey, who really thinks that girls have little to no purpose. And so but he has 2 children, a son and a daughter, and he has dreams of having Paul Dombey, his son, be in his business when he gets older. But his son is very weak and ill, and his daughter is of course strong and healthy, but he thinks very little of her. It's a very powerful family oriented story, really about worth, and I'm looking forward to reading that again. That would be one I'd recommend for a book about family. Number 2, The Grinch. Read a book about a redemption of an unlikable character. Okay, this one's easy for Dickens anyway. You could read A Christmas Carol, although that's going to come up in the prompt a little bit later. There's definitely that. I would say even Great Expectations could be considered a redemption story. Some people don't really like Pip in that novel, and I see him maybe a bit as a redemption story. I would try Unbroken by Laura Hillenbrand. And that's the story. It's a nonfiction. It's a story of Louis Zamperini, who is an Olympic athlete who went to World War II as an airman, and his plane crashed. He was captured by the Japanese, put in an internment camp. It is a traumatic but inspiring story of how all those events gave him an incredible PTSD, and how he was able to overcome that in the end. It's a very powerful story, probably one of the best nonfiction books I've ever read. The ending of the book had me almost in tears, which is amazing for considering it's a nonfiction. But yeah, Laura Hillenbrand is such an incredible storyteller that she will just capture your attention. I know there was a movie about it recently, which I haven't had a chance to see yet, but I'd really recommend that book. Question number 3, The Polar Express. The Polar Express is one of my kids' favorite Christmas movies. It came out when they were young, and we just have grown up watching it. And I know the animation is maybe a little uncanny for our times today, but back then it looked pretty amazing. And I really love that film, and I love the music especially. It's just a great, cozy Christmas film. But do you have a favorite book about travel? I love Michael Palin's travel book series. It begins with Around the World in 80 Days with Michael Palin, and he tries to repeat the Phineas Fogg travel, which is also a good travel book. Can't get much more classic than that, the original. But he journals his way around the world in 80 days, and then that has inspired a series of travel books as well as travel docuseries that I really enjoy. I find them very cozy. Someone as goofy as Michael Palin can write so beautifully and seriously about the world, and there's some humor in it too. So it's a good balance. Number 4, Home Alone. Read a book about a character who has to overcome challenges on their own. Yeah, Home Alone. I mean, I saw this film when it first came out in theaters, and my face hurt from laughing so hard. It was unlike anything we'd ever seen before, and it was great. It had humor. It had, I was 12, 13 years old at the time, so that's just key demographic. And yeah, nothing funnier than seeing a guy get a hot iron smashed on his face, But a book about a character who has to overcome challenges on their own. I think for that, definitely. This one, for me, though, for a non-Dickens book, it might be a bit of a stretch. I think I would recommend the Harry Dresden series. Harry is a wizard who's also a private detective. This is a fantasy mashup with a hard-boiled detective novel, especially some of the earlier novels. And yet Harry has friends and companions that will occasionally help him. But quite often by the end of the story, he is fighting on his own. What's neat about that series is the progress through it, where he kind of does start off alone, but he gains not only more power as the series goes on, but he gains more friends and help along the way. And it's an incredible series. It's one of my favorites. So I would just recommend the entire Harry Dresden series. Question 5, the Hallmark Christmas Movie. And the question here is, recommend a cozy book. I think cozy can be defined as many different things. I've mentioned before, I find Louise Penny to be cozy, like her Inspector Gamache series, although not everyone would call it a cozy mystery. I mean, I wouldn't define it as a cozy mystery, but it makes me feel cozy when I read it. But as far as Dickens goes, any of his novels just really make me feel cozy. But lately I just reread Pickwick Papers. Really, just any cozy mystery you want to read. There's plenty of cozy Christmas books. There's cozy reads galore. I've talked a ton about cozy mysteries lately, both on this channel and on my Christmas podcast. So you could check out there for some recommendations. But find a cozy mystery and read it. But yeah, my favorite cozy mystery series right now is the Mrs. Claus mystery series by Liz Ireland. I think that kind of gets the top shelf for me. Number 6, A Christmas Story. Reread a book you didn't like to try and give it a second chance. The 5th Season by N.K. Jemisin. I tried reading it just a year or two ago and really did not get on with it. I had a lot going on, and I knew that book needed my attention. So I tried it again this year. I ended up DNFing it again. It just wasn't for me. And I'm getting better at DNFing books instead of forcing myself to finish them. But it's considered a classic. It's a well-known book. It's won a lot of awards, and people seem to really like it. I just didn't connect with it. Number 7, Christmas Vacation. Read a book that makes you laugh. This one's easy. Well, Pickwick Papers makes me laugh, but I already used that. Nicholas Nickleby is pretty funny. That has some good humor in it. There's plenty of Dickens stories and short stories that just make me laugh. Besides Dickens, I would say The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy trilogy. All 6 books are hilarious. 5 are written by Douglas Adams, and I love them. They were life-changing for me when I was a teenager and first read them. Prompt number 8, A Miracle on 34th Street. Read a book about faith, or read a book that is a retelling of a classic. Now, a couple things about this. For the movie, I like the remake better than the original. I know that's probably heresy, but I first saw the remake versus seeing the original for the first time. That was my first experience. So that probably explains it, but I really do enjoy that remake version. And I know not everyone has faith in God or faith in whatever it is you worship. But if that's a topic that maybe you don't want to read about, I get that, or you don't read about it, that's fine. So I also added read a book that is a retelling of a classic, which is basically what that second movie is. And I couldn't decide which prompt to go with, so I went with both on that one to just give you a little bit of an option. So yeah, as far as Dickens goes, read a book about faith. He's written The Life of Our Lord, and it's Dickens's retelling of the life of Jesus Christ. He didn't write it for publication. He wrote it for his children. He wanted them to know about Jesus and who he is. And it has such an interesting history behind it in that regard. And I guess that way you could get both options for that question done in one book. It's both a book about faith and a book retelling a classic. So there you go. Number 9, It's a Wonderful Life. Reread an old favorite. Many people will watch and rewatch It's a Wonderful Life every Christmas. I've only started doing that just within the last couple of years. It's somehow a movie I just had never gotten around to seeing. But reread an old favorite. I could reread A Tale of Two Cities. I'm willing to bet I could read it every year like I do with A Christmas Carol. I do the same with that because it's such a powerful story. It has such beautifully written language in it. And that would be the Dickens novel I'd recommend for this prompt. Other books, this one would have to be pretty much anything by Ray Bradbury I would recommend, or I would answer it that way. The Martian Chronicles I've read many times. The Fahrenheit 451, Something Wicked This Way Comes, his short stories. I've read some of them so many times, but I love rereading. And I know some people don't do it very much because there's so many other books they want to read, but I have found great value in rereading books. I used to never like to reread a book either because I thought, well, I've already read it. I think there's great value in rereading a book, that you can get more out of it. Number 10, The Nightmare Before Christmas. Recommend a scary book. Recommend a scary book. Well, for Dickens, yeah, I would recommend The Haunted Man and the Ghost Bargain by Dickens. It's one of his Christmas novellas. This one takes place more at the Christmas season. It's not as Christmassy as like A Christmas Carol is, but it follows a man named Professor Redlaw, who is consumed with heartache over wrongs that have been done to him in the past and over heartache that has occurred. And so he makes a bargain with a ghost that he would have all of his bad memories removed. And then anyone he touches also loses their heartbreaking, depressed memories. And you would think that that's going to go well, but it doesn't. And it makes a very profound statement about the purpose our memories have, even the sad ones, even the heartbreaking ones. But that book scares me, not maybe in a way that, like The Nightmare Before Christmas would scare you, or a horror movie would scare you, but I don't know what it is, but the atmosphere, the way he writes, the scenes where Redlaw is talking to the ghost who looks exactly like him, has the power to remove memories. Those are things that kind of prey on my mind. What if I've forgotten something important and I don't remember it? That kind of unnerves me. Dracula by Bram Stoker. That book is scary. And I just reread it this year and it's still held up to me. Prompt 11, Elf, read a holiday book. Dickens has plenty of Christmas material to choose from. Of course, the Christmas Carol. The second one he did, the Chimes, has to deal with, takes place on New Year's. And New Year's, I think, ties into that pretty strongly. So that would be another option for something a little different, because I do say holiday, not just Christmas. And so another recommendation I would make for that would be, I love Christmas cozies. What's fun is that a lot of those mystery series also cover things like the other holidays too. And it's part of what makes them so charming. Okay, number 12, A Christmas Carol, read a classic book. For Dickens, you can just pretty much pick any of his books. They're classic. But another one I'd recommend to read a classic book. I mean, let's just talk about some of my favorites. North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte. Jane Eyre, I think, is probably one of the most classic, the many people's favorite classic novel. And every time I reread Jane Eyre, I'm just getting more and more out of it. And I'm even beginning to understand why, Jane, the whole Jane Eyre and Rochester relationship is a part of the story that always kept me from really thoroughly enjoying it, because I really did not care for Rochester at all. But someone pointed out that if you looked at it as Rochester having a redemption arc, that might help, and it definitely has. So hey, there's an option for you for the redemption question. All right, so this was my cozy Christmas book tag, and I would love to hear what books you would recommend for these prompts. And as far as tagging people, I want to tag someone who's not doing this Advent series. I'm going to tag Mitzi from Mitzi Reads and Writes. I've really enjoyed her Christmas tags, or I've really enjoyed her Christmas content this year. So I tag Mitzi. I'd love to see what books you would recommend for these questions. And then two others, and these are also the ones who are doing the next Advent. So you can check out their channel tomorrow for something new and Christmassy coming your way. But Lee from Dark Roots Creations, and then also Stormy from Storm Reads. They're doing a combined thing tomorrow, it looks like, according to the schedule. So you might want to go ahead and check them out. And also they're both tagged to do this video. If you want to do this challenge as well, it's definitely open to everyone, and I tag anyone who's watching this because this is a tag that I would love to see get around. My first original tag, and I'm really happy to share it with you. Until next time, happy reading and Merry Christmas.